everybody. Good evening. It's your favorite educator, Dr. Danielle Martin, in here tonight with Education is Freedom. Welcome to the show. This is a space where we discuss all things education. And as we know, education takes place both inside and outside of the classroom. This is a space where fearless, purpose driven female leaders, change makers, and advocates from all around the world get together, unite, talk about some good things. So let's tap in as I welcome this evening's guest. This evening's guest is Mrs. Tiffanie DeVan. Tiffanie DeVan is a higher education access partner for the Pennsylvania School Services Division of Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, in which we call in Pennsylvania PHEAA. She began her career in financial aid over 25 years ago. In her current position, Tiffanie provides a variety of in-person and virtual higher education-related services to students, educators, legislative offices, and community partners throughout North Central and South Central Pennsylvania. Tiffany's services include training workshops for secondary and post-secondary staff, financial aid, and FAFSA completion sessions, as well as a wide array of financial literacy and college and career sessions. Tiffanie is also the creator and host of PHEAA's podcast, The Higher Education Access Corner. New episodes of the podcast air every other Wednesday. It's a great show. I've been her guest before, providing candid conversations around higher education access and affordability. So please welcome to the show, Miss Tiffanie DeVan.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening to you.
How are you? Yes, you're
good.
welcome. So for those of you who don't know, Tiffanie is a very good friend of mine, sorority sister of mine, and I also call her Sister Moneybags. Why? Because
we're going to say that.
Because she has the money. She helps people get money. And so our conversation this evening is going to be centered around financial aid, financial literacy, all the things. She has some great information for you. So welcome to Education is Freedom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. So format of the show, I'm going to ask a couple questions. We're just going to have a dialogue and rock out. And so my first question for you is I would like to highlight your educational journey. You know, how did you land at this point in your career? What motivated you to be in this current space? Were you always somebody who was in financial aid? What does that look like for you?
So it's interesting. So I think I landed here and I stayed here because I made so many mistakes financially with my own educational journey. So when I started out, I wanted to go to an HBCU. I chose Hampton University, that home by the sea, and I loved it. It was a beautiful experience. I was also a student who did not know exactly what she wanted to major in, but I thought I did. So I was a computer science major, and then I reached my senior year. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being in this space. I hate numbers. I hate thinking logically. So I wanted to change it. But what someone did not tell me is, well, how are you going to pay for this? So I ended up with a lot of student loans. That fifth year, I was going to be that fifth year student. And I ended up doing was coming home to say, let me save a little bit of money and I'll go back and finish that last year. My parents did not want me to do that. They were like, no, if you come home, you might not go back. I ended up with a lot of student loans. I did not go back there. So I got a job at PHEAA. To believe it or not, my intent was to be there 1 year, go back to Hampton and be done. But I had so many student loans. I was like, yeah, this just is not working. I got to repay it. So I ended up making a career there unexpectedly. I did go back to school. I got my degree. I finished at E-Town and I changed my major. So I ended up with something that I wanted to do. Went into business administration, and I love numbers, but I just didn't want to be into computer science. So having made my way up through there, I ended up in a management role. Started doing some financial aid presentations, things like that. I left PHEAA, went to Members First, and I handled their student loan portfolio. And I really got into financial literacy. And there I ran into a lot of students who needed a lot of help, all sorts of questions. And the students are the ones that grabbed my heart because they were making the same mistakes I was making. And it was a great opportunity to help them. I've told you a sob story before, and I won't get into it, about where there was a kid. It was a young kid who won. I'm gonna tell it because I think
yeah, tell it. I'm like,
it's a quick story. And this is the longest version here,
this is good.
but this is the good part. So there was a student who came in to see me when I was at Members First, and he needed some help. He needed some financial aid. So I gave him all the counseling he needed on affordable options. Still needed a student loan. His parents weren't in a position to get the student loan. He was like, I really want to go to school. He had the school in New York all picked out. They couldn't make it work. Gave him everything he needed. So I said, come back next semester. This is what you can do now. Go to HAT, go somewhere else, get started. He said, okay, I'm going to do that. He stayed in touch with me. And then I didn't hear from him for a couple months. And then shortly thereafter, I saw in an obituary that he passed away. He had an asthma attack. And it crushed me because all he wanted to do was achieve his goals and go to school. And I was like, wow, this kid did everything in his power to try to get to his school in New York. And there was nothing I could do to have helped him. And I kind of said, I wish I would have seen him a lot sooner. I wish I would have met him before, like a month before he was about to graduate from high school, because I could have given him some tools and some resources on how to cover those higher education expenses. So that's something that always stuck with me. And then when the person who had this particular role at PHEAA was retiring, I kind of grabbed it, and it kind of stuck with me. So this is the best part of the job. And it's kind of like educating students and families on the affordable way to cover the cost of an education, not to get the student loan. Make sure you know what you want to do. Don't be the Tiff who wanted to change her major at the last moment, kind of give them those tips and those tools to kind of make it a little bit easier for them.
Wow.
So that's why with that. And that's how I got here.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, if you're just tuning in, we have Mrs. Tiffanie DeVan in the house today, who is from PHEAA, and she is discussing all things financial aid and literacy. So as a follow-up question to that, you talked about wishing that you would have known some things much earlier. When do you think is a good time or grade level or age to begin discussing financial literacy or financial aid?
As early as possible. Elementary school, believe it or not. And I think the conversation is geared towards the age group. So when you're in elementary school, it's not so much how you're going to afford it or that it costs money. It's about career exploration. What do you want to do? Because it's hard to have a conversation on what an affordable financial aid package looks like, or what a family can afford, if you don't even know what the student wants to do. If they've not explored a career, they don't know what it takes to get into that career. They don't know what types of schools are available or are required. So it really starts with that exploration, understanding what you like, what you don't like, and then from there, knowing what is required in order to get into there. Are you taking the right subjects right now throughout your educational journey? From everything from, are you doing job shadowing if you get the opportunity? If you just, let's say you want to be a doctor, are you talking to your doctors when you go there? Hey, how did you get into this particular career field? What does it take? What are the strong points or your favorite things? What are your least favorite things? What can I do as a student to prepare? Can I sit with you throughout a day? I think that conversation should be started early on. And then you increase their level of understanding with financial aid. And I think the parents also have to grow with that conversation, because a lot of times parents don't know and they don't understand what it takes. And a lot of times they'll start with me, their senior year in high school. So they're still trying to figure out what it is they want to do. How are they going to pay for it? That's a lot to try and grasp that senior year in high school, I think.
So, okay. So let's just back up and then let's talk about what exactly financial aid is for those who may not know. And what if we have a parent who may be listening to this, elementary school parent or a middle school parent. Can you explain the difference between scholarships, grants, aid, and loans? Like, what is all of that? What does that mean?
Absolutely. So all of those are financial aid. So financial aid is basically funding or resources to help the students and their families cover the cost of higher education. Comes in the forms of your grants and scholarships. That's your free money, also known as gift aid. And I always tell students that's where you want to land. If you can find another means than your own money to cover those expenses, do that. Scholarships can be based off of just about any criteria or category that is out there. Education, it could be tied to athletics. It doesn't have to go to the most studious student, most athletically inclined. Grants are usually going to be tied to someone's or the family's ability to pay. So you have to complete some financial aid paperwork. Work study, that's where a person is going to get a job, often coordinated with schools, but it's their way to earn some extra funds and work at the same time. So they're gaining some experience and they're working and they're using those funds to help cover their school expenses. And then, of course, the student loan, that's borrowed money that has to be repaid, quite often with interest. That is your last resort, because why? You have to repay it. Another thing I'm telling students right now, because you hear about student loan forgiveness right now, you hear about the government possibly wiping this out. Don't assume that if you're going to borrow a student loan that it is going to be forgiven.
Yes.
It's not necessary.
Say that for the people in the back again.
So do not assume that they are going to forgive it, because I keep hearing that discussion, well, I'm just going to take out this student loan and they're just going to wipe it out. That's not necessarily true. So always understand the terms and conditions of any form of financial aid that you are seeking, whether it's a grant, scholarship, work study, student loan. There are conditions. Some of them you have to repay, but make sure you understand the difference.
And can you help the audience understand why student loan repayment is important and how it may be tied to like your credit? And as a student, you want to graduate, you want a car, you want a house, but you got a big loan. Like what is all of that about?
So again, student loans, it is something that you must repay. And it's a way, I always say it can be a really great resource to help a student build their credit, or it can crush it. So I always say you have hopes and dreams, and I'm never here to kill anybody's dreams. But if your dream is to have a certain lifestyle, to have the car, and you need to finance some things, they're going to look at what's on your credit report and the manner in which you repay your debt. That's going to have an impact. It's going to determine what your interest rates look like, whether you can afford it. I always say, if I'm talking to students, are you going to live with your parents forever in their basement because you got this student loan debt and you got bad credit?
No.
I can't say.
Not in my basement.
Not at all, right? I really think student loans can be a viable option. And it can be, you can borrow wisely. You can do it in a very healthy manner, but you have to understand how much is too much. One of the things that we always tell students is, if you are going to borrow a certain dollar amount, one of the best things you can do is understand what your potential earnings could look like. So you don't want to borrow a great deal of money, understanding your monthly student loan debt is going to be, let's say, $600 a month. But when you look at the career that you went into, if your monthly earnings are going to be $800 a month, you're trying to overborrow and do too much. There's so many different paths to get to your end goal. You don't have to borrow or break the bank in order to get there. That's what the grants, the scholarships are for. Even the work study, it's not the best idea to get that student loan, bog everything down, and now you're stuck. Those who end up with a lot of debt or bad debt, sometimes it's not that you can't achieve your goals. It's just they have to be deferred a little longer. You're going to have to work a little harder to clean that up.
Okay, so let me take a minute here for the vocabulary. Deferred. Deferment. What is that? What does that mean?
So we're going to put them on hold. And that's also something to understand. So when I say understand financial aid, understand the terms and conditions of any type of financial aid that you get, you're understanding your rights as well as your responsibilities. You're responsible for repaying your student loan if you have a student loan, but you have a right to postpone that monthly installment or postpone those payments under certain circumstances. And that's what a deferment does. It literally puts it on hold for certain circumstances. For instance, maybe a student is unemployed for a period of time. Well, if it's a federal loan, there's a period of time where you can defer or postpone that student loan to give you a chance to kind of get yourself together. If you're going back to school, maybe you're enrolled at least half time, again, you can put a pause on them. And the key thing to remember is that if you know that is a right of yours, you reach out to your servicer before your student loans get delinquent or they go bad. So you don't ruin your credit by allowing it to be a pause through an official deferment. And that's one of the key things. Knowledge is essential here.
Before. You said before. So that means that you probably should be paying attention to what's happening with your account and such, so that you know, so that you're not trying to do this when things fall into the red and then wondering why you can't get anything.
Absolutely. And if they're federal loans, they are going to bombard you with information anyway. They send information in writing, they send information electronically, and they have a portal. So the Federal Department of Education's website is studentaid.gov. That's like a one-stop shop. Whether you're applying for financial aid, whether you already have financial aid and you want to track it, if you have federal student loans and you want to kind of put a deferment on it, something like that, they have a tracking system that's in there. You can log in and you can create an account, and it can tell you what your monthly installments are looking like, what your balance is like. And I encourage students to do that every single year. So before you borrow more money, let's see where you're at right now. Look at what your monthly installments will look like. Are you going to be able to afford this when you leave school? Should you continue to borrow? And I always say sometimes that's an incentive to start looking for more scholarships or more free funding that is out there.
Okay, so everybody, if you're out here and you're listening, we are encouraging you to like and share this conversation. We are also encouraging you to stay tuned on our social media platforms and subscribe to the She Is Still Dope app with all this wonderful information. So let me ask you this. When I used to work in the high school arena, I had a lot of parents or students who would say to me, "Oh, miss, my mom says she not turning in her W-2s because she don't want the government coming after her." Can we dispel some of the myths surrounding financial aid? I think it's a fear thing and just a lack of knowledge.
That too. Yep. So I think those are the top two: lack of knowledge and fear. And that is one of them, miss. And that's how they come at you, right? Miss.
Yep, miss.
Miss, you know what? My mom says she's not going to fill this out because number one, she doesn't want to share her information. She don't know what you're going to do with it. I've also heard, well, she says she's not borrowing a student loan from me. So if she gives you all my information, her information, it's going to make her liable for borrowing from me. And that's not the case. What happens is the federal government, state governments, they do get a little nosy. I tell everyone, they're going to collect key data about the student in their household. Then they're going to ask about how much money do you make? And really, they're going to incorporate most of the information that's on your tax returns or income that they've earned for a specific year. And that's just to help them figure out what I would call the financial strength in the household. It's a requirement in order for them to determine if you're going to qualify for the free aid. And that's where you want to land, again, grants and scholarships. But it's also required if you're going to get a work study or even a federal student loan. So you have to give them that information. They're not going to do anything with it. They're only going to share it with the schools because the schools are the ones that will determine how much aid you get. So they have to share it with the schools. But even the student controls that. They control which schools will get access to their information. They also share it with like the state agencies. So for those who are listening in Pennsylvania, that's PHEAA. And that's because the state also has funding. They're not going to just share it with anyone else who is random. And there's also another thing. So with the FAFSA application, you have to provide consent. So you're actually giving the Federal Student Aid Department consent to share your information with the key people that you're acknowledging, like the schools, only the schools you list. So it's pretty safe. It's pretty secure. Another myth I also hear is that my parents make too much money. You cannot make too much money to qualify for all forms of financial aid. Now, realistically, some parents will make too much money to qualify for all forms of aid. So there may be some grants they'll say, you know what, you don't qualify for that because it's designed to help those who are not financially in a position to cover those costs. But it's not for everyone. And it's not always tied to just how much or how little they make. It's also going to be tied to the overall cost of the school. So to me, the best thing to do is to complete the financial aid paperwork. It is free to complete because a lot of times they may end up getting some funding. So don't shoot themselves in the leg before they even get started. Don't miss out on any funding before you even get started. One of the other biggest things I hear, sometimes students and families get started with this. And when they're getting started, what ends up happening, they say it's too hard, it's a little difficult, and they just stop. And we want everybody to know that there are resources to help you. We at PHEAA help, but most state agencies have a way of helping. Even those post-secondary schools or those colleges you're interested in, they'll help you as well. Even if you're not planning to go to their school, the goal is to get you what you need to get the forms completed. Don't give up on it. The Department of Education themselves, they're a resource and they will help you. So don't say it's just too hard. It might be difficult, but it's not impossible because they're a resource to help you and we help for free. So it's not a charge in order to do it.
And I'm glad you said that, because as a parent of two girls who are in college right now at the same time, I was ready to jump in some traffic when, the whole process. And you all, who listen to this consistently or know me personally, I'm an educator. I've been in this realm. I've been doing this for a minute. And let me tell y'all, I almost lost my mind trying to get these babies to college, and the amount of paperwork, the applications, y'all need all the things. I felt like kitchen sink. Like I was overwhelmed. So I help them understand. Yes, you just mentioned the different resources and networks and people that will help. And it's free, by the way, right? Free 99. We love free.
Exactly. Free 99. I don't use that.
We love free. So you all, who everybody who's listening to this, there are free FREE 99 resources and informational. So give us an example of what does it look like for you to provide free? What does that visually look like? Is there somewhere you can go?
So a couple different resources that are out there. So for me, I am what we call a higher education access partner for the state of Pennsylvania. They have us everywhere. But for Pennsylvania, there are 13 of us strategically located throughout the entire state. And we each cover regions. So for me, whether it's a community organization, maybe it's a library who wants to hold something, most of the time you're going to be right in the school. So if you're in the secondary schools or post-secondary schools, we do a couple things. We have sessions, what we call financial aid nights, where we're explaining financial aid and we talk about the process, what it is, what's a grant, scholarship, how do you complete it, what are the forms that are required. The main form is the free application for federal student aid. Again, free application for federal student aid. And then we also have sessions where it's a lab. It's called a FAFSA completion workshop. With the FAFSA completion workshop, what we do is we tell you to bring all your paperwork. You and your student, you come in, and here's your computer. You log in, and we get you through. You're moving at your own pace, but we're there to guide you through the process so that by the time you walk out the door, you've completed your FAFSA, you've completed your state grant application if you chose to do so. And then you walk away with all of that done. So it kind of takes the frustration out, takes the fear and anxiety out because we're there and that we're experts. Also with those schools, sometimes we're at the post-secondary schools or those colleges, and we're in their offices with them, and they'll hold big sessions and say, hey, you know what, today's going to be a FAFSA day. We're inviting anyone in the community to come in. On our website during FAFSA season, if they go to PHEAA's website at PHEAA.org, we start to post a listing of those sessions that are open to the community. Some will say we only want it for our schools. And then some schools will say anybody can come in. Libraries do that a lot. They'll say, hey, you can have this day and we'll just bring us. Sometimes we bring some friends along, friends meaning like financial aid staff from other schools. And it's just to plow in. The goal is to help as many students as we can. We understand that education is expensive and not everybody has the tools and resources to get it done. So we're the public service side of PHEAA to kind of come in to kind of help ease that burden for them.
And I can't stress enough, the fact that you have these workshops in different places and that you're in partnership with, some of the higher ed institution. I can't stress enough how important it is for the families and the parents and the caregivers, whoever, to actually come and participate, because I think that's part of the issue is that sometimes we don't show up.
And don't be afraid to show up. Another thing is we also do them virtually. So maybe you can't come out. So we have virtual webinars all the time. And it could be anything from just a financial aid session to, hey, we're going to do a line by line through FAFSA every single time. And I've had people log in. We don't see them at all on a webinar. They just see us. And we will just walk straight through. And by the time we're done, they're like, hey, I literally walked through this while you were talking. And I'm like, that's the point. We also do them one-on-one. So maybe you can't go to the school. Maybe you didn't want to do the webinar and walk through it. You can set up one-on-one appointments with us virtually, and we'll walk through the application with the family while they're getting it done. So it's a lot of options that are out there. Just know that you don't have to pay anyone to get this done. And also know you do need to complete it if you want to be considered for the free forms of financial aid, such as the grants. Even the work study and the student loan, you got to complete the FAFSA in order to get it done.
And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that there are different ways to attend these sessions. So if you're a working person, you know, you can jump on these webinars when you can and complete the process. So listen, schools and parents have been informed about the new changes that are coming or have come to the financial aid process. What do those changes look like, and how should these families prepare? Admittedly, I done told you a little bit about me and my crazy. I'm a little anxious about it. So
I think I'm hoping you'll be pleasantly surprised. So lots of changes. So FAFSA's been around for a long time, and this is for this upcoming academic school year. So for anyone who's going to be enrolled in school between July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, they'll complete a new FAFSA application. The application will be the 24-25 FAFSA, and it is totally revamped in the first time in over 40 years. So it's going to have a different look and a different feel. It's going to be more user-friendly. So you'll like that. Lots of questions you won't even see and you won't have to answer. There will be no more than, I think, 38 or 39 questions on the form. The goal of them revamping it was to make it more user-friendly and to open up expanded eligibility for those who have a financial need. So in a lot of scenarios, some students who didn't qualify or families who didn't qualify for financial aid, they'll be able to qualify for more funding. So they've done some recalculations. A lot of terms are different. You all are used to expected family contribution. They've renamed it and called it student aid index. Do you need to remember the terms? No. Just remember that you won't see expected family contribution anymore, but more calculations with the SAI that we call it are going to make things a lot easier for students and families that are out there. One key thing that is very different this year is generally with the FAFSA application, for a dependent student, it does require their parents' information, and it used to want the parent that provided the most financial support for the student for the past 12 months. Well, this upcoming FAFSA is going to be the parent, it used to be the parent that the student lived with the most for the past 12 months. Now it's going to be the parent that provided the most financial support for the past 12 months. And that's not always the same. In many instances, it will be the same. Sometimes it will not be the same. So that's going to be a different look and feel in a household where the parents are divorced or separated. So it's a different thing. But the good thing is there's going to be a parent wizard that is out there that's going to go through a series of questions with the student in the beginning, like an onboarding process, to be specific to let them know which parent is going to be required. They've also renamed you all. You're not parents on this new FAFSA. You are a contributor. You are contributing your information. So you got a new name, right? But
look at that.
Same thing.
Because that I am.
Yeah. Now, the other part is it doesn't require, as a contributor, it doesn't mean you're required to contribute towards the bill. It means you're required to contribute your information. It also tells you have to consent. So in the past, they had an IRS data retrieval tool. You had to go out to the IRS, plug in some things, and it pulled in your tax return for the year that they needed it right into the FAFSA. It's a convenient process, but they made it a little easier. What they did now is there's a direct exchange with the IRS, and it just shares all of your information with those who need it, which means you're not going out to anyone. You won't even see these questions. So a lot of those questions you saw, you're not going to see this time. It's supposed to be a lot more streamlined than what it had been in the past. Another thing, if you're a student and not a current student, but you were a student in the past, you could list up to 10 schools in one setting. Now you can list up to 20 schools in one setting. You can shift the order if you wanted to. So there are a lot of new features. The best thing that I like about it is the onboarding process for the student, and there's an onboarding process for the parent. so they can actually work on the form simultaneously at the same time.
Oh,
So the parent goes through one piece, the student goes through the other piece. Both of them need to have their own IDs, their student aid ID accounts, though, in order to start the form. So those are the key differences. But the best thing I think a student and a family can do to be prepared right now are attend those financial aid sessions. Go to studentaid.gov, which is the Federal Department of Education's website, to learn about the different types of financial aid, and it tells them about the tools. Also to create their federal student aid ID account that acts as the electronic signature, and that's what's going to allow them to start the forms that are out there. And I can throw out a lot of information. It's going to feel like information overload. So I say the best things to do, go to studentaid.gov. Also go to PHEAA.org, PHEAA.org. We even have sessions. So we have sessions. It's at PHEAA.org/virtual. And we have webinars and sessions that will tell you how to create an FSA ID, how to complete the FAFSA application. We'll talk to you about what happens after you've completed it. And schools are telling you what you may or may not receive in financial aid. How do you process that? And how do you figure out what's a good look or a good choice? So it's lots of information, lots of resources on how to prepare. But also know that if you are a parent of a dependent student, you will have to share your information. And that's the key thing. They may ask about your assets and your income. How much money do you make? How much money is in your checking or savings account as of the day you're completing the form? So like I said, they get nosy, but all of those details will be right there and available before you sit down to do it.
And it's best to be honest.
It is best to be honest.
Let's talk about that.
Because they're going to check. They're going to know. And anything, and there's a thing on there that it's going to talk about it, that you're actually agreeing that and confirming that everything that you're providing to the federal government is true and accurate to the best of your ability. You never want to put yourself, if you're the student or even the parent, you don't want to put your kids in a position to where, you're not being truthful and then they find out. Because why? You're now going to be ineligible for the financial aid in general, and you won't get anything, even if you didn't qualify. So you don't want to do that. And in all honesty, the way they grab the income information, they're going to know anyway, because they're going to be specific with what they want and from whom they want it. So you might as well just knock it out and get the information. And probably being truthful is your best bet. I do tell some families, you know what, maybe you might not qualify for all forms of financial aid, free financial aid. So then you look for more scholarships that are out there. Students have the control there where they can look for as many scholarships as their heart desires. As long as they don't exceed the complete total cost of attendance, they can get some aid. If they think they're looking for too many scholarships, always check with the school's financial aid office to see how they handle scholarships that are out there. But scholarships can bridge that gap between what the schools are costing and what you may or may not get in financial aid. So don't lie. Just be.
How about that? Don't lie. Don't lie, y'all.
Right?
Be honest and truthful so you can get what you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't lie to
don't
people
lie,
because they're gonna find out.
Right.
Okay. So as I mentioned in your bio, you also have a podcast.
I do.
And so, outside of this platform, tell us about that. How can we find you if we want to listen to that? And which, by the way, her show is very good.
Thank you.
Very informative. So tell us about that.
And by the way, I didn't pay her to say that.
She didn't. She's Sister Moneybags, but she didn't give me a coin out of that bag.
Okay, so the podcast is called the Higher Education Access Corner. I air every other Wednesday. And you can find me on most platforms that are out there where you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Anchor. I think Anchor is actually bought out by Spotify now. But Spotify, Anchor, PHEAA's YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel called PHEAA Financial Aid. You can find me there as well. Amazon Music and some more. But the goal and the purpose of the podcast is to have candid conversations about higher education access and affordability. For students, it's also a piece for educators that are out there and parents as well. One of the things that I really enjoy is that you have an opportunity to talk to so many different people from so many different platforms. And again, you were on there with me. I think it was twice. We made 2 occasions. We had two special appearances with you, but it was from a parent's perspective and then from an educator perspective. And that was great. We've also had some where we're talking mental health because that's important and it's vital. And that's a part of higher education. I tell everyone, you know, you're going to go to school and you're going to be faced with life's challenges and you got to be prepared to know how to deal with it. We're taking care of our physical health, but mental health is a piece of it. So we try to pull in so many different facets of higher education, what students can be faced with, what parents can be faced with. So I'm loving it and I'm enjoying it. We just celebrated 1 year. So tune in.
Congratulations. That went fast.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Listen, you all definitely tune in. There's some great information on there. And you said every other Wednesday?
Every other Wednesday. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So what's your latest episode?
So here's one. There was one, and you can go back and listen to the recording. We talked about scholarships. I did one with Fast Web. So Fast Web is not actually a local one. They're actually the largest online scholarship search platform out there in the United States. And I had them come on and they talked about some scholarship opportunities, pros and cons, how to be mindful, how to look for them. So that was a great one that was out there. And then one of my favorite ones I'll talk about was actually yours with you and Ron.
Oh.
And the reason I say that one is because I got your true viewpoints as educators, but then I needed you all to talk. Okay, let's talk as parents. And you were able to give your own raw feelings, emotions, and opinions as parents. And I think sometimes if you're an educator, people just assume that you know it all and you're going through the process and It's easy and it's the same thing, but you also know there are resources to help out. So that was one of my favorite ones that are out there. All of them are my favorite ones. I encourage everybody to go and listen to them all.
That's so true. That's so true. Everybody has the misconception that because you're an educator, you know all the things. And I'm going to tell you all right now, I don't. And so, you know, Tiff is somebody who I call or just talk to on the regular. Her and another one of her coworkers, at one point they probably was sick of me. No. But that's why you have a network, right? And that's why you have resources, and that's why you have experts in different areas. I don't know all the things, but I know people who do. And so that's also the purpose of this podcast, right? To financial aid, I'm allergic to it. I'm just being transparent, but I know somebody who knows it.
There you go.
And so you all out there, you know, this is great information for you. She has dropped some websites. That pretty much answered my last question. So just for the road, how can students and families learn more about financial aid? You're on social media platforms. So if you could just say some more of those websites for us.
Absolutely.
You can write them down.
Studentaid.gov is with the Federal Department of Education. They also have a long one. It's called collegecost.ed.gov. That's like their one-stop shop. You can research schools, their costs, the feel for it. You can do everything that you need to do from the federal standpoint. PHEAA.org, PHEAA.org is another good one. And in there, they have a resource page for parents and a resource page for students. There's so many pieces of information, videos, tutorials. Educationplanner.org is also another one. It's all about college and career planning. And another thing I tell students to do is go to these post-secondary schools, those colleges, business schools, technical schools, trade schools. Look at their web pages. Go to their financial aid and admissions pages because they also have social media posts. They also have platforms where you can get all sorts of information about not just that particular school, but just education in general. Podcasts, of course, check out our podcast, right. Of course, but I think there's so many pieces of information. One of the pieces of information I think that oftentimes gets missed is to talk to those in your communities who've done it before. If you have a mentor, if you have an educator who's been out there, and talk to your parents. They may not have gone down the same path, but they might be able to connect you to a resource that they can. So use every bit of access that you have to get to your overall goal. And the one other thing, you kind of mentioned this when you were talking about yourself, I do want to share. Make sure that if you are that person who's going through the financial aid process before, don't convince the students that you know it because it has changed this year. So go through and learn these new changes. It's okay to not know, but don't assume that you know it. Just like you said,
Right.
you were in that particular role, but you knew you didn't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you've experienced this financial aid process before, there's a lot that has changed this year. Pull up a webinar, give me a call. Those who want my email address, it's Tiffanie, Tiffanie, period, DeVan, DEVAN, at PHEAA.org. So if I can assist you, I can connect you to a resource. If you are listening in a state other than Pennsylvania, go to your state agency's websites, because they also have lots of key information, just like we do on our page as well.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you that. Okay. Yeah, parents, families, caregivers, like no shame in your game. Like, you don't know what you don't know. This is a very serious process. I know it can be overwhelming. It can present anxiety. And what we've given you here today is resource. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask the question. And again, if you're asking me and I don't know, I'm definitely going to find the person who does. And Tiffanie is a great resource. So we've got some information for you scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Jot that down so you can stay in the know. Also, like, share, subscribe to She Is Still Dope. All of our platforms, we have all kinds of information and education for you on this app and on this platform. So, Miss Tiffanie, I think that's it. I think we covered all the bases and then some.
Well, I've enjoyed this.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. I'm going to make a public announcement here. I would love to have you come back on, because now you can announce this podcast on my next podcast.
Oh,
so look at work out your schedule so that we can plug your podcast on my next podcast.
Okay. Well, then we'll
give you some time.
You get some dates, and we'll get our next episode.
Absolutely.
Together.
Now, you said it on your podcast, so you can't change your mind.
I would never change my mind for you.
There you go. Thank you for having me, though. I think this
absolutely
was awesome.
Thank you for giving your time, and to everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Education is Freedom. I hope that you found this inspiring and empowering. Our conversation today had a lot of resources and information for you. So this show airs the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, and I'm inviting you to remain connected by downloading our app and following us on all social media platforms. Until next time, keep shining and never stop learning.